On behalf of the Ohio Wesleyan University Board of Trustees, good afternoon and welcome to this wonderful occasion. As Evan Corns always says, it's a great day to be a bishop. And that is certainly true today, because this afternoon we gather to rededicate Stuyvesant Hall, one of Ohio Wesleyan's iconic buildings, now restored to its former majesty and charm. All of us have recollections of the building we call Sty. Some of us remember it as a dormitory for first-year women back in the days of bells and women's hours. Some remember traying down the hills of Sty Glen, or hours spent in the smoker, the cave, and the study rooms. If these walls could talk, they would provide more than 80 years of memories, whispering of days gone by. Today, however, we celebrate the new Stuyvesant Hall. No longer a dormitory for young ladies, but a co-ed residence hall that stands ready to usher in a new generation of memories that will be as precious to today's students as our memories are to us. It is a privilege for me today to stand here with all the people who have made this transformation possible and provided a new and beautiful place for the vibrant Sty community, and in fact the entire Ohio Wesleyan community, to come together, to study, to learn, to laugh, and to live. Indeed, it is a great day to be a bishop. Thank you for being here and sharing it with us.
Thank you, Mike. Good afternoon and welcome to a glorious day on the campus of Ohio Wesleyan University. It is a joy to welcome all of you and to be able to share this special time together. A couple of notes: the hymn that was played by the chimes and the carillons in the bell tower as we began the program is a hymn that was sung on the occasion of the original dedication of this building more than 80 years ago. We thought today it might be better to hear the carillons than to ask you to sing that now largely unknown hymn. I want to introduce those who are on the podium with me this afternoon. To my far left, Gordon and Helen Kreider Smith. Gordon of the class of 1954, Helen of the class of 1956. Helen, a former resident of Stuyvesant Hall. Gordon, among those countless fraternity men who once stood in this courtyard crooning and singing to the women of this building back in the day. This project would in no way have been possible, and we would not be here today were it not for the extraordinary vision, generosity, support, challenge, encouragement, and in every other positive way, goodwill of Gordon and Helen Kreider Smith. We thank you for all that you have done to bring us to this day. And to my immediate left, from whom you just heard, Mike Long, the chair of our Board of Trustees, which is in the midst of its fall meetings, the opening meeting of the academic year. To my immediate right, Alan Sipple, a former member of this Board of Trustees, and who will offer our prayer of dedication. To his right, Wendy Piper, the Director of Residence Life and Associate Dean of Student Affairs here at Ohio Wesleyan. And to our far right, Iftikhar Shopal, who is a resident advisor here in Stuyvesant Hall and will speak to us on behalf of the students. The story that brings us here together today began nearly 90 years ago when Mr. and Mrs. Frank Stuyvesant, residents of North Central Ohio, learned of Ohio Wesleyan through a relationship with neighbors whose daughter was enrolled as a student here. The Stuyvesants had no previous relationship with Ohio Wesleyan, but from their neighbors they learned of the education their daughter was receiving and to the quality of the institution that she was attending. They also learned of a need of the institution, which at the time had no good housing for first-year women. Austin Hall and Manette Hall were available to upper-class women, but first-year women lived in Kwanzaa huts on the edge of town. And so the Stuyvesants, through the information shared with them by their neighbors, took an interest in Ohio Wesleyan and decided that they would share some of their resources and the extraordinary philanthropy that they had to make available with Ohio Wesleyan, and they proposed the construction of a residence hall that would house women in their first year of enrollment on this campus. The Stuyvesants made many trips to the campus, and when the commitment was made, it was at the time the largest financial commitment, the largest gift in the history of Ohio Wesleyan. An extraordinary thing to consider, a commitment of this sort from people who had no previous relationship with the institution, but had come to know of it because of the impact it had had on the daughter of their good friends and neighbors. The Stuyvesants became actively involved in the design of the building, and Mr. Stuyvesant, even in ill health, gave careful attention to all of the details in the design of this building. In the late 20s, he was scheduled to go to Florida for the winter months, but as his health was declining, he chose to stay behind and planning to leave once the final details of the design were complete. But in the midst of those last planning days, his life came to an end. He literally died spending his last days in the planning of this building. And so in his memory, Mrs. Stuyvesant added a feature to the building, the bell tower housing the carillons, which have been so wonderfully renovated by the class of 1957 as a part of the project that brings us here today. And so in about 1931, the building was opened, and for 40 years it served as the home of first-year women on this campus. Almost every woman who enrolled at Ohio Wesleyan in those 40 years lived in this building. I wonder if we could see a show of hands of all of the women in those early years who lived in this building. Let's give them a round of applause. There was one exception in the 1940s when the Navy occupied the building for a year and the women were relocated, but a year later, first-year women returned to this building. From the beginning, this was a building of innovation and design that sought to serve the needs of students in many ways far greater than the typical residence hall. It included a large dining room. It included a large gathering room in the bottom floor that in the early days was known as the smoker, because in those days it was the only room where people in the building could gather to smoke. It included a parlor in the front on the main level of the building. It included date rooms adjacent to the parlor where women could entertain men who visited for a brief period of time. It included other study rooms on each of the top two floors, and it included this magnificent courtyard that became a gathering place and a social center. It included the fountain and a statue, not the one that is there now, but the one that is there now seeks to replicate in the nearest possible way the statue that was placed with the fountain when the building was constructed. In the 1970s, as times changed, the building became a coeducational building housing both men and women and housing students from all 4 years of their experience at Ohio Wesleyan. And over the years, students took great pride in the building. They enjoyed the opportunity to live here. They enjoyed the arrangement of the building. At some point, the dining room was converted to a health center, so students from across campus would come here to receive care in the Student Health Center. But the building itself began to deteriorate. And in fact, within recent years, it had experienced serious deterioration. The Board of Trustees began to consider the need for the restoration of this building as a part of the restoration of the residential campus and as a part of a student housing master plan, the crown jewel of which would be the renewal of Stuyvesant Hall. About a year and a half ago, we had raised a bit of money. An early gift had come in the form of an estate gift from a woman who, it turned out, had been a resident advisor in Stuyvesant Hall in the year that it opened. It was a gift of $1 million that was applied to this building. The class of '57 took an interest in the bell tower. Others began making small commitments. Gene Carper made a significant commitment that led to the development of the Carper Family Room that you will see on your tour. But we had raised about $3 million toward a total project cost in the neighborhood of $14 or $15 million. When at the meeting of the Board of Trustees in January, a year and a half ago, the board said, "We can wait no longer. We need a plan, and we'd like for you to bring it to us in May." And so we put our heads together on campus, and that led us to our dear friends Gordon and Helen Smith. And they said, "We want to help. We think there is nothing more important at Ohio Wesleyan today than the restoration of Stuyvesant Hall. And we will help in a significant way, but we're going to give you a challenge. We will help in this significant way if you will meet the rest of the challenge within about 90 days, because we want you to be able to begin construction on the day that the students move out of the building after commencement, Mother's Day, this spring." And so we began visiting with people around in Ohio and around the country, including many of you who are here today. And you responded with extraordinary generosity, with extraordinary vision, and with extraordinary confidence that this project could happen and that this project was important for Ohio Wesleyan and that it was important for Ohio Wesleyan today. And so here we are today, barely 18 months after that challenge was issued by the board, about 17 months after the Smiths issued their challenge, and about 15 months after so many of you responded. Here we are today together to celebrate the restoration of this historic building. This building bears all of the historic features of a building designed in the 1920s. But today it bears all of the amenities of a building prepared for students in the 21st century. As you tour the building, you'll see the building that was originally designed with rooms with bathrooms between each two sets of bedrooms. That was extraordinarily innovative in the days of its design and is welcomed by students today. You will see that the dining room has been restored and is now the McCluggage Lounge. You will see that the smoker has been restored and is now the Milligan Hub. We'll no longer call it the smoker, though some of you may never get that up. And you will see many other spaces in the building that bear the names of individuals whose generosity and passion and confidence in the future of Ohio Wesleyan helped make this project possible. We thank all of you for your support. We thank all of you on behalf of the students who are living here today and on behalf of the students who over the next 8 decades, like the students from the previous 8 decades before them, will benefit from your vision, from your philanthropy, from your generosity as you have continued the legacy prepared by the Stuyvesants more than 80 years ago. I do want to recognize some guests and some people who have had particular roles to play in this important project. We want to welcome Dennis Stapleton from the Delaware County Commissioners and Tom Holman, the city manager of the city of Delaware, who are with us and representing the public officials of our community here today. I want to recognize Bob Luffersage and his associates at Schooley Caldwell, the architectural firm that was responsible for the design of the restoration of this building. They responded to a competitive request for proposals to provide guidance in historic restoration. And Bob, we thank you for the work that you and your firm have done in helping us restore this extraordinary facility. We're grateful to Kurt Schmidt and our longtime friends and partners at Lincoln Construction for their supervision of all of the contractual work related to this restoration. Kurt, thank you for all that you have done. Chad Arfins of Retzel and Andres provided invaluable advice that helped in the securing of the historic tax credits that brought us across the finish line. I saw Chad a minute ago. I've lost him now, but yeah, thank you, Chad. Nationwide Investments was an extraordinary and invaluable partner in helping us secure the historic tax credits and to secure the benefits of those tax credits, and we express our gratitude to Nationwide Investments for their role in helping us develop this project. There are many people on campus who have played an important role in the execution of this project, and the danger of listing people is that far too many people will be omitted from the list. But I do want to acknowledge as groups, Peter Shantz and the entire Buildings and Grounds staff, Susan McDonough, class of 1974, who's provided invaluable counsel to us throughout the project, Craig Olam, our Vice President for Student Affairs, and Wendy Piper, our Assistant Dean of Student Affairs and Director of Residence Life, Colleen Garland, our Vice President of University Advancement, and the entire University Advancement team, both in place now and those who have been with us in recent years, who helped secure the support for this project and have helped make preparations for this day. The class of 1957, ably led by Shar and Larry Hill, for the restoration of the bell tower and the carillon, which adds so much. Back in the day, I'm told that the carillons rang on the hour to announce the changing of class periods. I don't know that we'll ring quite that regularly, but if you stay for a few minutes, you will hear the alma mater as we close our program this evening. To the students for their extraordinary passion for the project, it was interesting visiting with students as we began to plan for this project. They said, "We can't wait for it to happen, but don't change a thing." And by that, they meant this is a special place. We like the feel of the building. We like the arrangement of the rooms. We like the common spaces. We like the courtyard. We like the feel of the place. We just look forward to it being fresh and current and contemporary. And then finally, to all of the donors who have provided generous support that made this day possible, we express our deepest gratitude. Every person who has ever lived in this building has his or her own memory of Stuyvesant. Every person who has ever visited this building has his or her own memory of Stuyvesant. And those memories will continue to be formed. The building now houses the Lindner Student Health Center that will serve the entire campus. Last year, more than 3,000 student visits to the health center occurred in the course of the academic year. The Milligan Hub will be a gathering place that will attract students for programming of all sorts. You'll see when you tour the building a wonderful kitchen that will be available for students who want to share in the preparation of meals together. The McCluggage Lounge, the Gillespie patio overlooking the Glen below the building will provide extraordinary venues for events on campus. 2 weeks from today, if you'd like to come back, you can join the students for a program called Styin' Up All Night. And we're going to have all of the venues in full activity throughout the time. This is a space that has meant so much to so many. And I remember Byron Pitts telling me about, describing for me, when I saw Byron here a minute ago, Byron's here somewhere, describing for me that the Willoughby Player Center, or the Cave, has this sort of sense of holy ground, of sacred space, for the people who have been benefited from that space. And it's not the only space of that sort here on this campus. So as we celebrate this dedication and we look forward to the years ahead, we look forward for all of the times, happy and joyous and sacred, that will take place and the memories that will be formed in the renovated Stuyvesant Hall. Thank you.
I think a very appropriate way to start what I had to say is just saying that seeing is believing. When we broke ground about 16 months ago, we were all trusting that this September we would be doing what we're doing here today. But I think today's reality, and today is the first day that we've had a chance to see the inside, it's even better than the dream, which we had had for a long time. And because I had remembered thinking that Stuyvesant was almost a new building when I was a freshman here, I did a little checking up too on what the history was. And evidently freshman women had lived in cottages, and that just wasn't a very satisfactory system. And the Stuyvesants really wanted this to be a very special place, and they did have a lot of features that were just unusual for a dormitory even in that time. But one thing that I did find is that that Rock had not mentioned, was that their gift had been made in 1925 with the stipulation that within 5 years, the ground would at least be broken for a new dorm. But for this renovation, Rock Jones was not given nearly as generous a timeline. But he had sought the challenge, was ready to move, and many of you who really helped make this day a reality know how quickly and decisively he did. And of course, nostalgia played a part in our wanting to help make this day possible. Stuyvesant was my introduction to 4 great years of campus life, and I thought it was a wonderful place to live. However, this summer, when I was recounting to our older grandchildren about how we lived there, they kind of rolled their eyes and couldn't figure out why I thought it was such a wonderful place. It was true that we had to be in the dorm at 8:10 p.m. On weekdays, which included Friday, 12:30 on Saturday, and 10:30 on Sunday. We also did have 2 additional 10:30s per week, and then had 2 1:30 a.m.s on a Saturday for the whole year. So that helped make life a little more enjoyable. Exceptions were made for university functions, which were usually in Gray Chapel, when we were given half an hour to be back in the dorm. Lights had to be off at 11, but we had some light cuts, which allowed the lights to be on until midnight. And a night watchman we called Pop walked around here and with his pad and paper made notes of which lights were on after 11. And at dinner time, we had to wait outside the doors to the dining room for the doors to open and the designated time, and then we had to wait for the head table to finish and get up before we could leave. Dinner was served family style, and there was one choice each night. And when liver was on the menu, attendance was definitely down. A buzzer system called us to the office if we had a phone call or if a date was waiting for us in the lobby. And there were date parlors off the lobby, for most certainly men were not allowed beyond those lobby doors. When I finished telling all this, my grandchildren did agree that the fact that my roommate was Quis Smith, who sat next to Gordon Smith in chapel 3 times a week, was definitely a plus. But while we were on campus, we knew we were enjoying life, but really only in the many years that followed did we come to understand how well both those experiences and what we learned in the classroom prepared us for what lay ahead. Not long after graduation, I found myself a former English major working for the head of the English department at Harvard while Gordon was attending business school. My salary was very low, but I could take 1 course each semester and also take a course in summer school. And I was really happy to find that I truly was very well prepared. But also as a student, I had never really thought of what professors had to do outside the classroom to be such good teachers. But in talking with faculty members in the department at Harvard, I learned that the professors whose classes I had taken here were very highly thought of for their scholarly pursuits outside the classroom. Ben Spencer was one of my favorite English professors, and I remember still being very excited when I was walking around Harvard Square during lunchtime one day and saw a whole window of the Harvard bookstore just filled with copies of his new book, Quest for Nationality. And that was just a few of the first times when that understanding of how important what Ohio Wesleyan had done for me. So although nostalgia played a part, more important for us was the knowledge that Stuy's condition most certainly detracted from everything else that was going on here in the camp, in the classrooms, and elsewhere. And during recent visits to the campus and in talking with recent graduates at some of the parties for prospective students, we sense that current students are just as proud of their educations at Ohio Wesleyan as we were. The expanded programs with the Schimmel Conradis Science Center, the changes in the curriculum, the travel and learning grants and theory into practice, and the opportunities that the Meek Aquatic Center provide for both competition and recreation are just a few of the many justifications for that feeling. And so as we celebrate the rededication of this campus icon today, we also celebrate many, many other accomplishments and look to the future with the expectation of many more celebrations to come.
As usual, that's a tough one to follow. But 62 years ago, time brought a simple kid from rural Indiana to Ohio Wesleyan, where he lived in a room on William Street, directly across from magnificent Stuyvesant Hall with its bell chimes, where within dwelled the beautiful freshman women. What a great way to begin college. As time progressed, things have changed, as they always do. Stuyvesant became no longer the strict purview of freshman women. Lights could stay on longer than 11 p.m. Men, as well as women, could roam the halls. Time eroded some of the fine finishes and silenced the chiming bells. Usage changed from strictly dorm rooms, and the smoker no longer made sense. The building itself evolved from its original pristine structure into a rather tired sty with potential, which steadily was going downhill. Bringing Stuyvesant back to its original glory was a major and costly undertaking that was continually trumped by other challenging campus needs that were more easily addressed than restoring the historic but tired structure that Stuyvesant had become. After a short time as president of Ohio Wesleyan, Rock Jones and the Board of Trustees identified the need to address the Stuyvesant problem that had become a negative for the campus. Rock worked hard, raised the anticipated $15 million for restoration, and arranged for the most talented architects and contractors to not just restore Stuyvesant to its previous glory, but to bring its layout into the 21st century. Thank you, Rock. As we now nostalgically think about our halcyon days of Stuyvesant, I'd like to bring to your attention something that was with us, all of us, when we first saw this historic edifice. It has been with us all, whether we are now the first inhabitants of renovated Stuyvesant, observed Stuyvesant in its decline, or were privileged to be enthralled while it was in its original prime condition. This something helps us, hinders us. It is pleasant, it is powerful, it is painful, and it continually enshrouds us. This is truly not a timorous time to talk about this something, time itself. Time, in its own particular way, has brought each of us to this spot today as we celebrate the restoration of historic Stuyvesant Hall. Time has given some of us over 60 years of memories of Stuyvesant. Others have shorter time recall. I would now like to speak specifically to those students and recent graduates who are here today that have seen what an expert restoration can do. As time progresses during your lifetime, Stye will inevitably become mellow and again need restoration. The evolution of culture will change the appropriateness of its current interior layout, even though it's now on the cusp of perfection. I've talked to some of these students before I came on the stage, so I want to talk to these students and recent graduates. I speak to you. Remember this day when time delivers you to your 70s and 80s, which I will attest will come much sooner than you now envision. A new restoration of Stye will be required, and you will be needed. Time works miraculously when combined with compound interest. If you were to put aside $100 today, add a modest $100 a year for the next 10 years, and increase it by $100 in each succeeding 10 years period at a 5% return, you would have in excess of $80,000. Make certain you do it so that time will allow you to hold a similar rededication just before the turn of the 22nd century. Time will have escorted most of us away, but please remember us and the $100 challenge we put before you. I'll now pass the direction of time to Wendy Piper.
Thank you for coming today. It's just an incredible event, and it's wonderful to see everybody here, everybody that came out to share this with us. This day seems almost surreal. On one hand, it seems like just yesterday we were in this very courtyard breaking ground to begin the restoration of old Stuyvesant Hall. On the other hand, that groundbreaking event seems like a lifetime ago. And what a privilege it has been to witness this dramatic transformation that started 15 months ago and now stands complete before us. I came across an Ohio Wesleyan yearbook from 1932, which was dedicated to the newly opened Stuyvesant Hall. I was struck by this description, which is as true today as it was then. The yearbook said of Stuyvesant's inaugural year, "Already it has assumed a certain position of dignity and a feeling that it is a necessary part of the campus. It is only a matter of time until it will assume a position of tradition." Tradition indeed. Think of all the memories that these walls hold. Who among us would argue that Stuyvesant does not embody the spirit of tradition at Ohio Wesleyan? In a later description, that same 1932 yearbook said, "It is inevitable that as the years pass by, the newness will be dimmed, but the charm, dignity, and traditions will ever increase." After 80 years, yes, indeed, the newness dimmed, and what an understatement that was. But the charm, dignity, and traditions that ever increased throughout its first 80 years are what moved so many of you to generously bring Stye back to life. You recognized a need and responded to it. The next 80 years will surely be marked with even more charm, dignity, and tradition. Stuyvesant Hall has long since been the icon of the residential campus. And thanks to you, it once again will thrive as the beacon on the hill, the destination place for students who have awaited its revival since it closed more than a year ago. I would like to offer my most sincere thanks to all who have made this a reality. I am grateful for the creative vision of the architects at Scully Caldwell Associates, who saw the potential to connect historical integrity to the needs of a 21st century college student. I wish to thank the tireless and meticulous crew of Lincoln Construction, who brought life to that vision that made Stuyvesant new again. Their continued loyal relationship with Ohio Wesleyan made this a beloved extension of our residential life family. I also want to thank our administrative leaders at Ohio Wesleyan, especially our president, Rock Jones, and Craig Ullum, Vice President for Student Affairs, as well as countless others who made a commitment to advocate for our students' quality of life and who continue to carry out the vision of an engaged residential community. I am especially appreciative of the students who put their input and contributions to the vision of this project when it began, for their patience throughout the past year and the first month of school, and for taking pride in their revived home. And finally, I am deeply indebted to the Smiths, all of the donors, and everyone who magnanimously gave of themselves to bring Stuyvesant Hall back to a place of charm, dignity, and tradition. Your generosity is humbling. You have come together to give our current and our future students a better experience, an experience that they so truly deserve. And that is why it is so easy for all of us to feel at home at Stuyvesant Hall and at Ohio Wesleyan. Thank you for that generosity. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Iftikhar Shopnil. I'm a senior, third year RA in Stuyvesant Hall. My first experience of Stuyvesant was fall of 2010 when I moved into the building as a first year RA. Even 2 years ago, living in Stuyvesant was not the first choice in anyone's list. Especially, I can attest to that being a student here for 4 years now. But the excitement of becoming an RA just took over all my desires of not living in the hall, so I decided to move into the building. And I can attest to the fact that it has been a really great experience living in Stuyvesant my sophomore year. Before my role as an RA, I was only acquainted with like few people on campus, 5 or 4, 3 of them being my suite mates, my RA, Sean Williams, and my best buddy, Clorel, up there. And I did not know many people before that. But after I became an RA, I moved into Stuyvesant and I met with new people. I saw new faces and I talked to people in the hallways, smiling, chanting, waving at me. And I've seen people laugh out in joys, and I've seen people share their sorrows and burdens of life. And I think Stuyvesant is more than just a building. It's a community of people sharing and living together. And in short, it's very human. It's very human, and I like that. I enjoy that experience living in Stuyvesant 2 years ago. And among all these experiences living in Stuyvesant, one thing that was very concerning for me especially was the failing structure of the building falling down every day, brick by brick. And me being an RA, I had to put in work orders every week for something that was going wrong in student room or in one of the common areas. 15 months later, I was asked to be an RA again in Stuyvesant Hall, the newly renovated Stuyvesant Hall, and I was very excited to move in, very excited to see what renovations has taken place over the course of 15 months. And it has amazed me how much it has improved in just 15 months of work. Stuyvesant Hall and the people living in the hall has had a great impact on my college experience and my personal development as a leader on campus. And I am very thankful personally to everyone who stepped up and helped the success of the renovation project and give us back the dormitory, the residence hall, which I would definitely say my home away from home. Thank you all for listening to me. Thank you for coming down here tonight. and celebrating rededication of Stuyvesant.
Let us pray. God of plan and purpose, God of creation and recreation, as the vision and generosity of the Stuyvesants first caused this building to come into existence, we are deeply aware that it is the vision and generosity of many persons who bring us to this moment of Stuyvesant's renewed beauty and potential for service. As the Stuyvesants acted out of the belief that there was a better way for Ohio Wesleyan students to live, so have many people acted today, and we are grateful. Now, this hall, center of so many memories, has a bright present and a potential for a bright future. May it always be a place of comfort and security. May its residents find it to be a place where learning continues and where community is experienced at a level that informs their lifelong understanding of society. May there be joy here. May the wondrous diversity of the human family bless this place. May the rooms and corridors of this hall be filled with conversations that stimulate questions and foster creativity. But above all, may this hall be home, home for countless students to come. We ask these things in hope. Amen.
What a glorious day for all of us. The entire campus of Ohio Wesleyan University is a laboratory for learning. A laboratory where our students are challenged to learn in the classrooms, on the playing fields, in the performance halls, in the residence halls, in interactions with faculty members and in interactions with fellow students, and away from the campus in interactions with people in the community where our students live and work and serve. And today we celebrate the renewal of this building as a centerpiece in this laboratory of learning, where relationships are formed and where lives are transformed. We celebrate the relationships that bring us together as the family of Ohio Wesleyan University. And we celebrate the connections that hold us together in the past, on this day, and in all the years to come. And so as this dedication concludes, I invite us to share the connection we have with one another as we stand for the ringing and, if you like, the singing of our alma mater.